Hello team, welcome to another ATPGEO politics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a US politics news extra, but also concerns sort of disinformation and social media and whatnot as well. Towards the end, we'll talk about that a little bit. I just want to give you a little insight into the relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It has long been thought by many analysts, such as Disagreements and others, that the relationship between Trump and Musk would break up because they just cannot coexist in the same spaces. They are two people that I guess have a degree of narcissism, a lust for power, and coexisting together, working towards a goal jointly is just not something I think they are both equipped to do. And we have just seen that the 130 days that Musk was given to be able to enact Doge as a kind of non-paid up special envoy or whatever his official job title was. He has had, I think technically and legally, 138 days to do that. And then essentially the White House said, see you later, mate. Thanks for all your help. Really appreciated it. But, you need to go and spend some time with Tesla. And Trump gave him, in this weird presser in the Oval Office, this gold key, one that he designed himself. And he I think he's given a couple out, maybe in Trump 1.0, so left over from then. But it's this gaudy key, as like, key to the White House. There you go. Thanks for your help. And then Musk was standing there and sort of looking like, actually, he was on the drugs that he's claimed to be on, as according to other newspaper articles. And that was all very odd, but kind of expected, because Musk's polling numbers had been disastrous of late. He has been associated with kind of fascism, to fascist salutes in public, right, one after the other. Just he tried to claim it wasn't that, but then everyone was calling Tesla cars swastikas, and basically his PR has been plummeting for some time. People are setting fire to Tesla vehicles and were vandalizing Tesla showrooms and so on and so forth. He became politically poisonous to the point where even Trump's team were like, okay, you're underwater, Trump, PR wise, but he is doing really badly and he's dragging you down. And so from a strategic, PR polling point of view, there was very much a belief that the Trump administration needed to jettison Musk. He was too damaging to the Trump brand and to the Republican Party as a whole. At the same time, the CEOs of, say, Tesla were screaming for Musk to stop saying stuff on Twitter. He was damaging the brand of Tesla, and actually the core consumers of Tesla are generally your more liberal types, because they're electric vehicles. These are cars that are deemed to be like well in the wheelhouse of the demographics of liberals, and they were the ones who are hating on Musk the most. And so massive drops in Tesla sales were leading the board of directors to go, hang on, Musk, you need to stop saying stuff. You need to stop being so political. You need to stop being so involved in the White House, and you need to spend some time here. So all of these things were sort of brewing to the point where essentially the Trump team got rid of Musk. But it was all still very sort of friendly to a degree, but we have been hearing rumblings behind the scenes. And then this Wall Street Journal article has just come out, and then Musk has been interviewed by CBS in what was an insanely cringeworthy interview, but was very revealing. And it shows that actually the two didn't agree on everything, and this is now becoming slightly more public. Now the question is, will we get to a public spat such that they really diverge and they end up not liking each other? Probably not, because if that does happen, Musk's platform can be used against Trump in a way that it was used for him to get him into power. It can be used to completely damage Trump. And if you are a Musk acolyte, if you're a Musk cultist, but not a Trump cultist, and I know personally some people who are this, who have gone to sort of support Trump because they're so in love with Musk, then actually those are the people that would easily reject Trump on account of Musk rejecting Trump. And Musk could bring otherwise Trump supporters who they might not realize it, but they need an excuse to reject Trump because of the bill being potentially disastrous, lining the pockets of rich people, but not looking after the working class in the US, and so on and so forth. And that's a major bone of contention, as we'll see, between the two. So if there was a proper divorce between these two and it got nasty, then that could actually really hurt Trump in a way that it wouldn't hurt Musk as much, because massive Trump supporters aren't really massive Tesla buyers. However, SpaceX is vying for contracts from the Trump administration, so it's in Musk's best interest to keep it as civil as possible, because he wants to be getting all of those contracts still, and he doesn't want those investigations brought back on him that he had stopped, whether it be the FAA, the SEC, or the FCC. Goodness me, all these acronyms. 3 different organizations that were investigating Musk personally and Musk's entities like Tesla and SpaceX. With Musk being in charge of Doge, they had been stopped. Now, if Trump then really has a public spat with Musk, he might then bring those investigations back onto Musk. Anyway, this Wall Street Journal is fascinating. This Wall Street Journal article, it's fascinating. Inside Trump and Musk's complicated relationship. I'm going to actually read most of this out. It's just too good not to. So Washington, President Trump recently posed an evocative question to his advisors about billionaire Elon Musk's promise to slash $1 trillion in government spending. Now, this itself is revealing. Musk's claims, remember, originally it was 2 trillion, then 1 trillion, then 500 billion, then 150 billion. Then it's like, well, maybe $150 billion savings next year. Musk was making these massive bombastic promises, and Trump has now asked, quote, "Was it all bullshit?" Trump asked, according to administration officials, wondering whether Musk could have ever come close to the cuts he promised to carry out through the Department of Government Efficiency. Well, of course, no, he couldn't do that. It was impossible. That would equate to, what was it, a quarter of the entire government spending or something like that. You just can't do that. The episode captured the flashes of skepticism and frustration from Trump and his senior aides over Musk's rocky 4-month tenure in government, with spats spilling out into the Middle East, cabinet meetings, and occasionally the Oval Office, according to people familiar with the matter. And they reflected the broader exasperation over roadblocks that have slowed Musk's efforts, from court challenges to bureaucratic delays. Trump continues to maintain a fondness for Musk and plans to see him in the future. They had dinner last week. He asked aides to organise a friendly farewell on Friday in the Oval Office, where the two men heaped praise on each other. Trump has described Musk to aides as 50% genius, 50% boy. And actually, Trump's probably got something right there for a change. I think there are elements of Musk that are to be congratulated. Like, he is quite visionary, although a lot of what he takes on are already existing visions that he amplifies, and he gets criticism for not really doing things from scratch himself. So he isn't like the inventor, the designer to a degree. He is the amplifier, but he has this ability to take certain projects from this kind of smaller stage to a massive world stage. But then he's 50% boy. is just like a child. He's just like wanting attention and having public tantrums. And actually, I think Trump's right there. 50% genius, 50% boy, according to White House staffers who heard his comments. Another White House aide said they heard Trump call Musk 90% genius, 10% boy. I wonder if that's to his face. The two would have long, discursive conversations over dinners at Trump's club, but Musk sometimes confuses Trump with his eccentric humour, White House officials said. Elon is not really leaving, Trump said on Friday. He's going to be back and forth. And there's a little bit more detail and talk about Doge. We'll rejoin it here. The most recent blow-up between Musk and the White House occurred 7,000 miles away from Washington. Musk became so incensed by a deal led by his rival Sam Altman of OpenAI and its planned rollout on a presidential trip that he complained to at least 3 White House officials, leading to them getting Trump involved. The president's schedule was rearranged to appease Musk. Trump had planned to speak about the deal on a trip, along with Altman and other officials, according to people familiar with the matter. But to calm Musk, the announcement was pushed back by a week, and people said, and Altman didn't appear in public at the public event with Trump. Meanwhile, Musk has been feeling blowback from his government service. Quote, I had to get some heat off me and my companies, Musk has said privately, according to the senior administration officials describing his rationale for leaving the government. He has been rocked by plummeting sales at Tesla, which saw its net income slide by 71% in the first quarter, and a series of setbacks at SpaceX, where just this week a rocket exploded. In a cabinet meeting earlier this spring, Musk stood up and told assembled cabinet secretaries and other senior officials that they had no idea how much damage was being done to his cars and how difficult his business situation was, people who attended say. The remarks caught officials by surprise. Attorney General Pam Bondi told Musk she would prosecute every criminal they could catch. Musk has told White House aides he will support the president politically in the future, but Trump's advisors said the $100 million check he vowed to the president's political action committee hasn't arrived. Musk, for his part, at times accused some of the White House of not being as committed as he was to changing Washington. Trump's advisors described a whirlwind ride with the world's richest man, who occasionally slept at the White House, regularly sent late-night messages, and often surprised senior administration officials with his decisions and his public and private comments. Musk clashed with senior White House officials as he made dramatic government cuts without consulting others, including White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and senior officials in the communications office, aides said. Now, Susie Wiles, this is me speaking, is, I think, the one who's finally sort of pushed Musk out because strategically, he is not in Trump's best interests anymore. For several weeks, top Trump aides regularly learned from news reports or cabinet secretaries what Doge was doing, even when the cost-cutting department laid off hundreds of people or sought sensitive data from agencies, according to his aides. Regularly learned from news reports. They weren't getting it from Musk himself. He also clashed with personnel aides over vetting of some of his staff, some of the people said, believing that the White House shouldn't control his team at Doge. Incredible. Tension with Trump's staff escalated to the point that Trump got involved and asked Wiles to play a more hands-on role managing Musk, according to people familiar with the matter. Senior White House officials urged Musk and his team to tell them what he would be doing so they could message and defend it. I mean, the problem is, if Musk is going around making all these cuts and you're finding out on the news and then you're having to defend that in real time. If you remember, there were a time, I think, when both Trump and Caroline Leavitt were finding out things, as they're being asked by the press. And so, if he's not letting people know, then they can't defend what he's doing and get the messaging coordinated. It becomes difficult. Musk at times told staff they didn't need to know everything about his plans. Eventually, Musk agreed to have regular meetings with Wiles. Susie Wiles is the chief of staff for Donald Trump. Trump and his advisors were frustrated when Musk attacked Senator Todd Young, a Republican from Indiana, as a deep state puppet in a February social media post. Trump advisors had worked for days to get Young to vote for Tulsi Gabbard as his nominee to be Director of National Intelligence and believed he was going to vote yes. Vice President J.D. Vance serving as peacemaker, called Musk and asked him to tone it down, and Musk took down his post. Then White House officials picked up the pieces, a Trump advisor said. White House sides were also dismayed at how involved Musk became in a Wisconsin Supreme Court race because they believed Brad Schimmel, who was backed by Musk and the state's Republican Party, wasn't going to win, and the race was becoming a referendum on Musk and Trump, which indeed it did become, and Schimmel lost by, I think, 12 points in the end. Musk was dismissive of those concerns, saying the polling he commissioned shows Schimmel had a chance. Trump became annoyed after doing a town hall with Schimmel, telling advisors that he was done with him because Schimmel couldn't answer questions cogently about abortion. According to people familiar with the matter, Schimmel lost overwhelmingly. Trump disliked how critical Musk was toward cabinet secretaries and his public attacks on trade advisor Peter Navarro, whom Musk called a moron and said was dumber than a sack of bricks. White House officials, he's got a point. White House officials said Trump was surprised at how nasty Musk was in one cabinet meeting toward other members of his administration. Now, as an aside, there is the claim that Musk and the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, that there was a claim they got physical with each other. Bessent was swearing at Musk. This was in the White House, I think in the White House corridors. And there are plenty of claims about things that were said in cabinet meetings. Is it Scott Duffy, the transportation secretary, famously did not get on with Musk. So he was ruffling a lot of feathers and having very public arguments. I say public, not out in the public, but in public in the White House with some of these top cabinet pits. So, yeah, and then there's been this whole controversy to do with Stephen Miller's wife, who appears to have gone with Musk, and I think indeed left Stephen Miller. And I don't know how involved with Musk she is, but that has caused all sorts of rumours to circulate and could explain why Stephen Miller is angrier than he normally. No, he's no more angry than he normally is. He's just a very angry, horrible human being. But that's another thing to throw in here. Indeed, the article continues. White House aides came to resent Katie Miller, Musk's top aide, who regularly said she spoke for Musk. Musk was particularly tight with Stephen and Katie Miller, socialising with a couple outside of work. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told White House officials he needed control of his agency after Musk made drastic cuts to US Agency for International Development. Remember, Marco Rubio used to stand up for USAID funding, and now he's had to come and oversee it being completely destroyed by Musk. So there you go. So he after Musk made drastic cuts without conferring with others, a White House official said. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, not Scott Duffy. Sean Duffy clashed with Musk over air traffic controllers, White House aide said. And again, this was an area where Musk was seeking to get contracts with the aviation industry, having Starlink and all sorts, implemented there. Behind the scenes, Musk was animated about Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, telling staff they would be terrible for the global economy. He's got a point there. Musk called top business executives, White House officials said, and urged them to talk to Trump and explain how misguided the tariffs were. He lobbied against tariffs to some of Trump's advisors and complained that Trump was getting bad advice, according to a person who spoke to him. Trump advisors told Musk that Trump believed in the tariffs and wasn't going to change course. Trump grew irritated in April when he learned Musk was getting a top secret briefing at the Pentagon on China. I remember I reported that. Trump advisors said it was the most frustrated they'd seen him about Musk's actions. He said Musk getting the briefing was a conflict of interest, two administration officials said. Trump told aides that Musk, who had space contracts, shouldn't be working at the Pentagon. In recent weeks, Musk continued to frustrate White House officials with cuts on the Health and Human Services Department, and some in the West Wing disagreed with, and with public attacks on the Congressional tax bill. But Trump was less angry than some of his advisors about Musk's attack on a tax bill, officials said. And that's interesting, a little throwaway comment there, because there are some that are suggesting that there are elements of the tax bill are actually this big, beautiful bill that Trump doesn't like. And he had touted even some higher taxes on rich people, like before the bill was kind of formally put together, and then that was kind of shut down by the Republican Party. But I think this is a bill that Heritage Foundation want, that certain elements want. It's got loads of additions, but actually when you look at all of it, no one's going to be happy with the bill because it's a massive bill that entails loads of things, some of it incredibly controversial. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene has just come out and said, because it's hidden in the middle of the bill is this bit that people like Musk would have put in there. Hidden in the middle of the bill is that AI won't be regulated for 10 years or something. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has come out and said, I didn't know that was in the bill. It's a 1,000-page bill. You don't get long to read it. You ask to vote on it, votes for it. And actually, she publicly has come out and said, I wouldn't have voted it had I known that was in there. AI is a really big threat, blah, blah, blah. So the bill does have an awful lot of stuff in it that is highly controversial. And there will be elements of it that everyone will be unhappy with, I think, no matter who you are. Anyway, so that is some background to the relationship from, I guess, a Trump point of view. Then we had this weird interview, and it's weird because it's just deeply, deeply uncomfortable, on CBS.
Yes.
The interview didn't get off to a smooth start.
I noticed that all of your businesses involve a lot of components, a lot of parts. Do the tariffs and the trade wars affect any of this?
Tariffs always affect things a little bit.
Wondering what your thought is on the ban on foreign students, the proposal. I mean, you were one of those kids, right?
Yeah, I think we want to stick to, the subject of the day, which is like spaceships, as opposed to, presidential policy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was told anything's good, but...
No, well...
Using the...
I mean, it's so deeply, deeply cringeworthy. I was told we could talk about anything, and he's like, no, that's not cool.
Anything's good, but...
No, well... No.
Musk doesn't seem like he's thrilled about the tariffs. And then when it comes to the student visas, something that Musk took advantage of for foreign students,
right?
He gets real awk.
Well, the whole thing was awkward. Like even the interviewer was like awkward about it. He's like, I thought we were supposed to talk about that.
It's whole weird thing they played that part of the interview. Actually,
I loved
where
it.
The interviewer.
Yeah. No, I loved it. That was fascinating to me. It's like two people who are like pretty introverted being like, wait, I thought we were going to talk about that. No, I thought you weren't going to talk about that. And be like, wait, did we not coordinate this? It's just like...
I really appreciated that as well. And we're just going to see another part of the interview here.
But in the follow-up question, as we get into kind of what happened with Doge and what is happening on the Hill with the reconciliation bill, he shows a little more leg. Let's watch that.
And, it's not like I agree with everything the administration does. So it's like I agree with much of what the administration does, but we have differences of opinion. There's things that I don't entirely agree with. But it's difficult for me to bring that up in an interview because then it creates a bone of contention. So then I'm a little stuck in a bind where I'm like, well, I don't want to, speak out against the administration, but I don't want to. I also don't want to take responsibility for everything the administration is doing.
All right, Sam, what do you think?
And I'll tell you what I think. That's an absolutely fine position. I mean, it's a difficult position, but it's a fine expression of where he's at, which is, I'm in a bind, right? I massively disagree with the tariffs because it's going to screw all of my industries up. Like the amount of resources I get from China, the amount of stuff I want to get from Russia, the amount of stuff I want to get from around the world. He has advocated very publicly that the US should have a free trade agreement with the EU, and Trump is attacking the EU and seeing them as the enemy, and that will absolutely screw over Musk and people like Musk, right? These corporations, these entrepreneurs, these multinationals. And so he's right to say, well, he's justified in saying, this is really difficult because I don't agree with everything. I agree with a lot of what they're doing, but I don't agree with this, and I don't want to have to, in for a penny, in for a pound is a bit simplistic. I don't want to be seen to be representative of everything the Trump administration does. So I absolutely get that, and the problem is that the tariffs are absolutely going to screw Musk over. And so it's not just a case of like, oh, I disagree with that policy a little bit, and so, you know, I'll keep quiet on that. It's like, no, that is ruinous to the economy and ruinous to me and my business entities. And so, you know, there's a real issue here, and that could underwrite some of the, well, as we saw from the Wall Street Journal article, you know, issues over the reconciliation bill and tariffs are issues that are, I think, lie at the heart of this divergence. So now we're moving on to this period over the last few days where Elon Musk has been very vocal in his opposition to the congressional bill. I'm sorry, he said the other day, June the 3rd, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. And that's it. Just like, yeah, that is a really public excoriation of the bill and anyone who supported it. Honestly, you know, this is pretty damaging for what Trump is calling the big, beautiful bill. Elon Musk then came out and said, in November next year, we fire all politicians who betrayed the American people. So he seems to be going hell for leather against the big, beautiful bill. Elon Musk appears to call for every Republican who voted for Trump's big, beautiful bill to be fired. Total chaos. The MAGA movement is imploding before our eyes. It's interesting times. Elon Musk then said, it will massively increase the already gigantic budget deficit to $2.5 trillion and burden American citizens with crushingly unsustainable debt. And there is definitely a point to this. I'd say actually it's looking at raising the budget deficit by $4 trillion or more. So it depends how you read it and what you think will happen. But essentially, the point is pretty salient that here is the guy who, and I massively disagree with Doge, right? And especially how it was done. Here's a guy that was going around making swinging cuts that eventually led to like $150 billion worth of savings, if you can agree with even that. Some saying much lower, 60 billion, some saying actually the evidence is sort of 30-something billion dollars of savings. So after doing all of that crazy stuff that has led to him being roundly despised by an awful lot of people, particularly those whose jobs he cut. And then for the government to turn around and say, thank you very much for making, I don't know, $30 billion worth of savings. We're now going to increase the deficit by 2.5 trillion, as according to Musk himself there. 30 billion, 60 billion, 150 billion is a drop in the ocean compared to that. So he's justifiably angry. And it's going to be fascinating if this goes south. Now, we'll do this bit first. So these guys, we're returning to the bulwark here, but with an extra member on the panel. These guys are wondering whether it will be a full-on public divorce or whether they would just about hold it together.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
There's also in the bill, they're getting rid of the tax credits for electric vehicles and home solar energy,
Right.
which is like a direct hit to Elon's wallet, which could be pissing them off even more.
I still don't see a breakup with him and Trump. I still don't see it.
Yeah, a couple other things I wanted to bring up just because I was on his Twitter feed for if you're looking for evidence of whether it's a full breakup. It's also funny, like Elon is so shallow and manipulative that he could like say things like shame on you who voted for it, you know you did wrong, and then the next minute be like, hey buddy, like that's like like if I'm shouting shame at somebody, like it's going to be a little minute for us to repair our relationship. That's an issue for Elon. He was retweeting Mike Lee like 2 seconds later. The other thing is, he is still leaning in on his stuff. He did a tweet about how USAID funds terrorism right before. So, like, again, to your point, Joe, like the messaging is very Freedom Caucus oriented. And I think that kind of, you could almost imagine an alternate history, like where the breakup happened a month ago and Elon like riles up that caucus and maybe like gets a couple of those guys But at this point, I don't know. TBD. We'll see. A full breakup with Trump is hard to see, but like Elon, just looking in the little box, finding something fun, and popping out at 3 a.m. and he's tweeting at all hours. So all it takes is just like 1 minute where he's like, "Fuck you, you fucking little or tiny fingered vulgarian," and like, or what was his Peter Retardo? He comes up with one of those for Trump. That could happen, I think.
Yeah,
we'll know that like they've formally broken up when Trump says, "I've never met the guy. I don't know him."
Who is he?
That's how we know it's over.
So they don't seem to think that this is going to be a permanent sort of breakup. And as I said, I think there's too much on the line there certainly for Trump to want to really jettison Musk, and for Musk in terms of his business opportunities and contracts. Now, this I find properly fascinating. So Spencer Hakimian here, who often comments on economic things and whatnot, says, "I have a totally anonymous Twitter account where I follow no one. No one follows me. I never search something. I never like or comment on anything. I never open up a post. I do this purely so I can see what Twitter's algorithm is sending to a viewer that it knows nothing about. Tonight, I am noticing a clear shift in the algorithm." Honestly, fascinating this. If it's true and if it's accurate. Post after post trashing Republicans for the big beautiful bill, and post after post praising Ukraine's military efforts. This is unlike anything I have ever seen before. The algorithm is usually filled with Charlie Kirk, various XRP scams, and some pro-Trump AI slop. None of that tonight. Very interesting. Elon has definitely put his hand on the scale. So here we have, Ukraine pro blowing up the Crimean Bridge, and Republicans now being against the spending bill. Chris Owicki says this wouldn't be the first time that Elon has allegedly put his hands on the scale. So X's algorithm has already been publicly outed as being fiddled with in the run-up to the election. So we know it was used to amplify Republican voices pre-election. And it appears now, at least from this source, that it might have its parameters be adjusted to promote an anti-Republican or at least anti-bill, spending bill slant. And that appears to also include being pro-Ukraine, which we know generally Twitter isn't. It does appear that those blue check accounts and the amplification of that message is not often pro-Ukraine. So I think this is fascinating. And if Elon is doing something far more subtle to get a bit of payback against the bill and the people who supported it, then that's some pretty underhand tactics from a person who was responsible for getting Trump into the White House in the first place. So, really interesting relationship between these two. Where it's going to go now is even more fascinating because there are all of these different dynamics at play. Anyway, let me know what you think of this breakup and where it's going to go, and let me know what you think of the Twitter algorithm side of things as well. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.